Monday, January 24th. Let's just get right into it. Today I want to talk about the Ukraine. For years now, at least a year and a half, I've been feeling like this is coming really close to just boiling over. It's obvious that Russia wants to get into Ukraine. Years ago, I remember hearing that if Hillary had gotten in, or if she was to get in before the 2016 election, that if she would have got in, that there was a good chance we would go to war with Russia. Number 45 came in, he disrupted the whole thing. We know what's going on with that. We've seen where that's led us. One of their little puppets in, and here we go, right back to the agenda. Everything. They completely went right back to business as usual as before 45 ever came in. They're destroying our dollar, they're destroying our economy. Everyone's worried about a huge market crash, but they're going to prop that up for now. This pullback and everything that I see, I would not be surprised if the Fed comes out this week and talks about, oh, we're going to this and that, and then they ice everybody over, they feed everybody a bunch of bullshit. I think it will crash. I just don't know if it's going to be like this week. Maybe it will be. I don't know. Either way, it won't last long. They will not let it fall yet. They have an agenda that they're working, and the market's not going to completely crash yet, in my opinion. You're seeing these escalated tensions. I mean, the last thing we need to do is get ourselves into a war with anybody, let alone a big monster like fucking Russia, man. Like, Putin's a badass, and the Russian military is no joke. And to be honest with you, what's going on with them in Ukraine is really none of our fucking business. I'm so sick of our military playing police all over the goddamn fucking country all the time. And some people are going to get mad at me for this shit, but I don't care. War doesn't solve anything. And too long, we've been throwing our weight around, man. This is one where if we get in the middle of it, I don't think it's going to be a good fucking idea. Check this out.
Developments as tensions mount over Russia's military buildup along Ukraine's border. Tonight, President Biden now putting 8,500 U.S. troops on, quote, heightened alert, ready for rapid deployment to potentially support NATO forces in Europe. Late today, the president holding a secure video call with European leaders. It lasted 1 hour, 20 minutes. The president, a short time ago, calling it a very good meeting with total unanimity with all of the European leaders. The White House tonight saying the leaders discussed preparations to impose, quote, massive consequences and severe economic costs if Russia moves.
Weijia Jiang is at the White House, where President Biden is now weighing his response. That includes sending more troops to Eastern Europe. Weijia, good morning. A lot of Americans waking up going, what exactly does that mean?
Good morning. President Biden spent the weekend at Camp David huddling with his national security team about the current state of Russian military operations. CBS News has learned that Mr. Biden is considering sending several thousand U.S. troops and equipment to reinforce the eastern flank of NATO.
What type of military involvement is actually on the table for the United States right now?
So right now, there's sort of two buckets of what the administration is considering. One is what they would have to do after. If Russia invades, what the U.S. military would potentially send into the region or move around within the region. And that is largely a factor of the U.S. having a commitment to NATO, to Article 5 commitment to NATO. So they would shore up some of the neighbors, some of the people around Ukraine. But what's significant here, Garrett, is over the weekend at this briefing at Camp David, Secretary Austin and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs General Mark Milley, they presented some options for what the U.S. military could do in advance of Russia actually invading Ukraine. And that, again, it's not only is an attempt at deterring Putin from deciding to invade Ukraine, but it's also a measure to reassure and reinforce the defenses of some of the NATO neighbors that are right around that area.
The only reason I don't like doing this is you never report on why I've called a meeting. And this is really important. I had a very, very, very good meeting, total unanimity with all the European leaders. We'll talk about it later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Why are you sending 8,500 troops to Ukraine? What do you think the president's on inflation back? Do you think inflation is a political liability?
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
We begin with the tense standoff along the Ukraine border. More than 100,000 Russian troops are now poised to potentially invade from the north, east, and south of Ukraine. Russian fighter jets and missiles arrived in neighboring Belarus, where war games are set to begin. Meanwhile, NATO naval exercises are taking place south of Crimea in the Mediterranean, and 90 tons of military aid just arrived in Kyiv from the United States. President Biden is monitoring the situation from Camp David, and he met with his national security team yesterday. Late Saturday, Britain accused Russia of a plot to install a pro-Russian leader in Ukraine as it considers some form of attack. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is just back from consultations with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, and he joins us this morning from the State Department. Good morning, Mr. Secretary. These all look like signs of escalation.
Well, there is a path of diplomacy and dialogue, which is clearly the preferable one, the most responsible thing to do. There's also the path of Russian aggression and massive consequences for Russia if it engages in that aggression. And so I tried to make clear both paths in my meeting with Foreign Minister Lavrov in Geneva this week, and we'll see if we can advance the diplomacy. But even as we're doing that, we're preparing, building up defenses, building up deterrence, if Russia chooses the other path.
But if Russia's demands are non-starters, what exactly are you negotiating? Because Russia's creating these facts on the ground. They are setting the terms here, it seems. Are they just using you to buy time or to build a predicate for invasion?
Well, it's exactly why, even as we engage in the diplomacy to explore whether there are ways on a reciprocal basis of building up collective security, answering some of the concerns that Russia may have, Russia answering the many concerns that we have. Even as we're doing that, we are building up defense and deterrence. We have rallied allies and partners across Europe in a very intense way over the last weeks to make very clear that there would be massive consequences for renewed Russian aggression. We provided more military assistance to Ukraine last year than in any previous year.
Right.
We've been going after agents of Russia in Ukraine, seeking to destabilize the government. I just approved the transfer of U.S. origin military technology in other countries to Ukraine. So we are proceeding on both paths at the same time. We'll be ready either way. The choice is Vladimir Putin's.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says Russia is planning a lightning raid on Ukraine as British embassy staff and their families withdraw from Kiev. He warns that an invasion of Ukraine would be disastrous for Russia as it could become a new Chechnya. The UK is not considering sending any combat troops to Ukraine, but it is providing weapons and is planning sanctions against Russia. This report comes from NTD's Eddie Aitken.
The Prime Minister says Russian forces gathering on the border with Ukraine are planning a lightning raid.
The intelligence is very clear that there are 60 Russian battle groups, about 60 Russian battle groups on the borders of Ukraine. The plan for a lightning war that could take out Kiev is one that everybody can see.
Boris Johnson warned President Putin that invading Ukraine would be painful, violent, bloody, and a disastrous step.
I think it's very important that people in Russia understand that this could be a new Chechnya. I've been to Ukraine several times. I know the people of that country a bit, and my judgment is that they will fight.
The PM says the invasion is not inevitable, but the UK has to take necessary steps.
But the UK is in the lead in creating that package of economic sanctions, stiffening helping to stiffen the resistance of our Ukrainian friends, as you know, with defensive weaponry that we're supplying, making it clear that we stand fully foursquare with the people of Ukraine.
Some British embassy staff and their dependents are being pulled out of Kiev after the US ordered the families of all American personnel at the US embassy to leave the country. The Foreign Office confirmed the move, saying the British embassy remains open and will continue to carry out essential work. The EU, for now, does not plan to withdraw diplomats' families from Ukraine.
I don't think we have to dramatize. As far as the negotiations are going on, and they are going on, I don't think that we have to let Ukraine and leave.
Ukraine's ambassador to the UK told Sky News that Ukraine thinks Putin will invade as the president annexed Crimea by force a few years ago.
The issue is how much he would bring up with. Is it full-scale invasion, or it is, as was mentioned, discussed many times, smaller things, just to annoy us and the rest of the world, to show his strength and believe that we will back down.
Ukrainian Foreign Ministry said that the US step to move their diplomats' families out of Kiev is premature and a manifestation of excessive caution. Downing Street said British troops would not be used to defend Ukraine.
The Pentagon is putting 8,500 troops on high alert for potential deployment to deal with the situation in Ukraine. NATO is also sending more troops, warships, and warplanes to Eastern Europe over the tensions. Here's the latest on the situation between Russia and Ukraine.
The Pentagon said Monday that Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has put up to 8,500 troops on heightened alert. They will be ready to deploy if NATO decides to activate its response force to deal with the situation between Russia and Ukraine.
As of now, the decision has been made to put these units on higher alert and higher alert only. No decisions have been made to deploy any forces from the United States at this time. And when I say heightened alert, in some cases, some of these forces were already on a heightened posture, readiness to deploy posture, and the Secretary decided to make it even more, shorten the tether even more.
NATO said on Monday that it's placing extra forces on standby and sending more warships and warplanes to Eastern Europe. They will be stationed in Lithuania, Bulgaria, Romania, and the Baltic Sea. The State Department also said they prefer diplomacy and dialogue with Russia.
They've also heard, and they've heard this in our private engagements, but also very publicly as well, that just as we are prepared for dialogue and diplomacy, we are pursuing defense and deterrence.
On Sunday, the State Department ordered all family members of U.S. Embassy staff in Kyiv to leave Ukraine immediately. Embassy staff can also choose to leave voluntarily. The department also upgraded the travel warning for Ukraine to level 4, do not travel. The State Department says that they are keeping U.S. citizens in Ukraine informed of safety and security developments. But they also note that in the case of a military conflict, the U.S. won't be able to evacuate Americans from Ukraine.
That is why we have encouraged private U.S. citizens who may be in Ukraine to plan accordingly, including by availing themselves of commercial options should they choose to leave the country.
Meanwhile, the UK and Australia have also begun withdrawing some embassy personnel from Ukraine. And Germany offered assistance to families of embassy staff and some civilians who want to leave.
Russia's been itching to go into Ukraine for a while, man. They want it back. They want that territory back. They want that land back. Just like China, inevitably, at some point, will take back Taiwan. These two things are inevitable. Russia will take back Ukraine. I've been saying this for years. Maybe not spoke of it much on my channel, but amongst my friends and my peers, where we have our open discussions, I've been saying it. I've been saying it's going to happen. Same thing with China. They're going to take back Taiwan. And this is the perfect weak sitting duck administration for them to do it under. And they know it. And they're going to position and they're going to make their moves now while they can. All this language and all this posturing and all this bullshit coming from our government and from the Biden administration, it's just a bluff. They know damn well they don't want Joe getting into it with the OG like Putin, man. Putin is legit. Like, he's legit special ops, trained military man. He's super intelligent. You know, honestly, in a lot of ways, I like the guy. And in a lot of ways, those people in our country, our people, aren't that different. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic. Mark my words, though. You'll see a repeat of Afghanistan all over again with Ukraine. The people who are there should take serious heed to the warning, and they should get out now. Because our joke of administration is treasonous as possible. There's no loyalty or honor there, and they will be left behind. This will be another addition to the failures of the Biden administration.